Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic. How were women actually treated in the Old West? The movies and books often paint a romantic picture, but the reality was much more complex and sometimes shocking. Number 1. Daily life and hardships. Women in the Old West faced a myriad of hardships that required incredible strength and resilience. Their daily lives were filled with physically demanding tasks and responsibilities that often extended far beyond traditional gender roles. This era, spanning the mid-1800 ES to the early 1900s, was marked by a rugged frontier life where survival depended on hard work and adaptability. One of the primary challenges women faced was managing the household. This included not only cooking and cleaning, but also making clothes, preserving food, and tending to gardens. Without modern conveniences, every task was labor-intensive. For example, doing laundry meant hauling water from a well or river, heating it over a fire, and scrubbing clothes by hand. These chores consumed much of their day, leaving little time for rest. In addition to household duties, many women worked alongside men in the fields, particularly in farming families. They helped with planting, harvesting, and tending to livestock. This work was physically exhausting and required women to endure harsh weather conditions, from the scorching summer heat to the freezing winter cold. Their contributions were vital to the family's survival and success, yet often went unrecognized. Childcare was another significant aspect of a woman's life in the Old West. Women were typically responsible for the health, education, and well-being of their children. In remote areas, access to medical care was limited, making childbirth especially dangerous. Women had to be knowledgeable in basic medical practices to handle illnesses and injuries. The mortality rate for both mothers and infants was high, adding emotional stress to their already difficult lives. Many women also took on roles outside the home. Some ran boarding houses, worked as teachers, or operated small businesses such as general stores or seamstress shops. These entrepreneurial efforts provided essential services to their communities and offered women a degree of economic independence. However, balancing these responsibilities with their domestic duties was challenging. Isolation was another hardship for women in the Old West. Settlements were often spread out, and communication with family and friends back east was slow and infrequent. This isolation could lead to loneliness and mental health struggles. Women relied on each other for support, forming tight-knit communities where they shared resources, knowledge, and companionship. The harsh realities of frontier life demanded that women be resourceful and resilient. They developed skills in areas ranging from agriculture to medicine, often out of necessity. Despite the many obstacles they faced, women played crucial roles in the development of the American West. Their perseverance and hard work were foundational to the survival and growth of their families and communities. Number 2. Lawmen and outlaws. The Old West was a land of contrasts, with lawmen and outlaws playing significant roles in shaping the environment. The presence of these figures had a profound impact on the lives of women, often placing them in vulnerable positions, while also offering rare opportunities for rebellion and fame. Towns in the Old West were frequently lawless, with a sparse and often corrupt justice system. Lawmen, such as sheriffs and marshals, were tasked with maintaining order in these volatile environments. Their effectiveness varied, and many towns experienced high levels of crime and violence. Women, in particular, were susceptible to these dangers, facing threats such as theft, assault, and exploitation. The lack of robust legal protection made their lives precarious and fraught with risk. Despite these challenges, some women defied societal norms and became notorious outlaws themselves. Belle Starr, known as the Bandit Queen, was one such figure. She was involved in horse theft and other criminal activities, carving out a place in a world dominated by men. Belle Starr's story highlights the complex dynamics of the Old West, where the lines between lawfulness and lawlessness were often blurred. Another notable female outlaw was Pearl Hart. She gained fame for her role in a stagecoach robbery, a daring crime that brought her notoriety and a place in history. Hart's actions were driven by personal circumstances and a desire for independence, reflecting the desperation and boldness that characterized many outlaws of the time. The presence of outlaws created a constant state of tension which lawmen attempted to mitigate. Figures like Wyatt Earp and Wild Bill Hickok became legendary for their efforts to bring order to the chaotic frontier. Their reputations were built on their gunfighting skills and their ability to confront and often outmatch notorious criminals. However, their efforts were not always successful, and many towns remained dangerous places for women and families. The dynamic between lawmen and outlaws significantly shaped the daily lives of women in the Old West. While lawmen sought to provide a semblance of security, the pervasive threat of crime and violence remained a constant challenge. Women had to navigate this treacherous landscape, finding ways to protect themselves and their families. Number 3. Cowboys and frontier life. Cowboys were iconic figures in the Old West, known for their rugged lifestyle and pivotal role in shaping the frontier. They led transient lives, moving from one cattle drive to the next, which often meant their interactions with women were fleeting and sometimes exploitative. However, their respect for the women who managed to thrive in such a harsh environment was often profound. The primary job of a cowboy was to herd cattle over long distances, ensuring they reached markets or railheads safely. This work was grueling, requiring long hours in the saddle, often in extreme weather conditions. Cowboys faced numerous dangers, including wild animal attacks, outlaws, and the risk of being trampled during a stampede. The nomadic nature of their work meant they rarely settled in one place for long, contributing to a lifestyle that was both lonely and challenging. Interactions between cowboys and women were varied. In some cases, cowboys frequented saloons and brothels, where interactions were transactional and often exploitative. These brief encounters painted a picture of cowboys as rough and sometimes disrespectful toward women. However, this was not the whole story. Many cowboys held a deep respect for the women who managed homesteads and supported their communities through hard work and resilience. Frontier women were the backbone of homesteads, taking on roles that extended far beyond traditional domestic duties. They worked the land, raised children, and often managed the financial aspects of their farms or ranches. These women were incredibly resourceful, finding ways to survive and thrive despite the numerous challenges posed by frontier life. Community building was another area where women made significant contributions. They established schools, churches, and social gatherings, fostering a sense of community in an otherwise isolated and rugged environment. Cowboys, who often relied on these community structures for support and a sense of belonging, respected the crucial role women played. Despite the rough and transient lives of cowboys, there was often mutual respect between them and the frontier women. Cowboys recognized the strength and resilience required to manage a homestead and build a community in such harsh conditions. This respect sometimes led to lasting relationships, with cowboys eventually settling down and starting families with the women they admired. Number 4. Native American women. Native American women faced unique and formidable challenges during the Old West era. The arrival of settlers led to displacement, violence, and cultural erosion, profoundly impacting their lives and communities. Despite these hardships, Native American women played essential roles in preserving their cultures and resisting assimilation. Displacement was a major issue. As settlers encroached on their lands, Native American communities were forced to relocate, often to unfamiliar and inhospitable territories. This displacement disrupted their traditional ways of life, making it difficult to maintain their customs and social structures. Violence was another significant threat. Native American women frequently faced attacks from settlers and the military. These acts of violence were part of broader efforts to suppress Native American resistance and facilitate westward expansion. Cultural erosion also posed a severe challenge. The U.S. government implemented policies aimed at assimilating Native Americans into Western culture, such as placing children in boarding schools where they were forbidden to speak their native languages or practice their traditions. Despite these efforts, many Native American women fiercely resisted assimilation, working tirelessly to preserve their cultural heritage. In their communities, Native American women were crucial in maintaining traditions and passing down knowledge. They were often responsible for education, storytelling, and the preservation of spiritual practices. Their resilience and dedication helped ensure that their cultures and identities survived during a period of intense upheaval. Number 5. Women's rights and suffrage. The Old West, often seen as a rugged and male-dominated frontier, was surprisingly progressive in advancing women's rights. This region became a significant stage for the early women's suffrage movement. In 1869, Wyoming made history by becoming the first U.S. territory to grant women the right to vote. This groundbreaking decision was a reflection of the unique social dynamics of frontier life. In the West, women were indispensable to the survival and success of their communities. They managed households, worked alongside men in agriculture, and often took on roles as teachers, business owners, and community leaders. Their hard work and resilience were critical in taming the frontier, and these contributions did not go unnoticed. The harsh realities of frontier life fostered a sense of equality and practicality, leading to greater recognition of women's roles and rights. The decision to grant women the right to vote in Wyoming was also influenced by political and social factors. Leaders hoped to attract more settlers, including women, to the territory. Additionally, many Western men who had witnessed women's capabilities firsthand supported their right to participate in civic life. This progressive stance in the West set a precedent that influenced the national suffrage movement. Other Western states and territories followed Wyoming's lead, furthering the cause for women's rights across the country.